We appreciate your being here, and I appreciate the opportunity from the news media, television, radio, and I will try to answer your questions as best I can. Roxanne can answer questions, and if I don't hear too well, which sometimes they don't work too well, Roxanne will interpret your questions, and she will answer some of them.
You can give an introduction to what the Venus Project is.
Well, I want to try to tell you what the Venus Project is. If you want a world without war, most crimes, corruption, all that levels off, unemployment, you have to do certain things, if you agree with me. You have to declare all the Earth's resources as the common heritage of all the world's people.
Jaz vam imam vprašanje, potrebujete sploh tolmačenje slovenščine? Daj, you can talk.
All the world's people would have access to all the world's resources without the need for money, debt, or anything of the kind. The Venus Project wants us to pass the need for armies, navies, killing, soldiers, prisons, police, all the problems we have in society today. Politicians do not know how to answer.
They know English. They know English. Okay, go ahead.
Politicians, I don't want you to take my word for anything. I don't want you to follow me. I want you to listen to what I say. If it makes sense, do it. So go ahead and check with your politicians. Say, how do you prevent automobile accidents? They don't know. How can you increase food production? They don't know. How can you stop war, bridge a difference between nations? They don't know. They were great 100 years ago, but politics is obsolete. Everything that you have today that works is electronic, automobiles, flying machines. You had nothing to do with them. People say to me, Jacque, you want to give people things for nothing. Just being born in a technical country, you got the radio, the telephone, television, airplanes, cars. You didn't have anything to do with it. You got it for nothing. It doesn't hurt you. What hurts you is ignorance, not knowing. And schools today, all of them, universities, they are better equipped than ever. The wars are getting worse. So there's something wrong with all countries. From my point of view, they are all basically corrupt, including America, one of the most corrupt countries in the world. Now I say this because I'm concerned with the direction people are going in. Our major problem is our language. The language that we use today was designed hundreds of years ago. And the words that you use today do not work on all people. They go in their head and comes out as an interpretation. So we need a language that's not subject to interpretation. That's the major problem of the media today. The language they use is subject to interpretation. Is it possible to develop a language that's not subject to interpretation? Mathematics is not. Chemistry is not. When a chemical formula is written, it's understood in every country, not subject to interpretation. When engineers talk to each other, the language they use is not subject to interpretation. So it does exist. There are such languages. We have never been taught those languages as a definite process for communication. When a president or a politician speaks, he says, America, blah, blah, blah. America, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't say anything you can use. If a person were to say to me, the Venus Project will never work, I can't answer that because there's no question. If they say your beams are too narrow on the bottom of the building, or your bridges are not sufficient to carry the traffic, I can deal with it. But if you say you'll never see that, not in 1,000 years, that's useless, blah, blah, blah. So try to eliminate blah, 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 and come up with a real question. Who makes the decisions? What if a person doesn't want to live in that society? Is there freedom? Freedom of religion? Is there tradition? Will that be outlawed? Who makes the decisions? Those are the real questions. So, if you can't...
You move into a resource-based economy,
Yes.
not knowing those issues.
Well, a resource-based economy is first doing a survey of what the world has. Arable land, production plans, transportation, all the essentials that make civilization work. Politics have nothing to do with it. We wish to take all the world's resources after a survey. After you survey what we have, then you design your cities. Your cities have to be based on not some opinion of a politician or any other opinion, but how much can the earth support? What is the carrying capacity of the world's resources? And base your designs on survey, not what's your opinion, what's your opinion. You were brought up, I believe, to believe that everyone should have a right to their own opinion. That's very dangerous. If you live across the way from me, and I see 10 men coming out of your apartment, I can have all kinds of opinions. But I really should say, I don't know. She could be a language instructor, a ballet instructor, I don't know. But if you give everybody a right to their own opinion, yes, we think man will ever get to the moon? No, not in 1,000 years. You think that person studied anything? Just a blowing off steam, ego. And we have to have people who say, I don't know enough about rockets, I don't know enough about space travel, I can't answer the question. Learning how to say, I don't know, is one of the most important things in the history of civilization. Everybody's got answers based on nothing. So a resource-based economy uses resources and makes them available to all people. Now, where did America get the land America from? They stole it from the Indians. They stole some of it from Spain, some from Mexico. After we stole all the land we need, we put up the sign, thou shalt not steal. Now, Britain was never welcome to another world and say, here, take our land, use it. They say the sun never sets on England. They took it by murder, violence, lies, hypocrisy, and training people to be killing machines. I would take all the soldiers, if I had anything to do with it, and train them to be problem solvers. What's the problem between nations? How do you solve it? Not kill. Kill. Primitive. Savage. We are not civilized yet. As long as you have armies, navies, submarines, battleships, airplanes, and politics, we are not civilized. As long as you have prisons, police, hunger, starvation, non-medical care for the poor, we are not civilized. And I'm afraid of the space program. If any single nation goes out into space and develops the technology, I can assure you, sooner or later, there'll be nuclear weapons going around in space. They're not sane enough yet to use technology wisely. Unfortunately, this goes for scientists too. Scientists become very stupid when they're brought up in a given culture. Their field of endeavor, like optics, chemistry, structure, very good, but they're not trained as generalists. Most structural engineers know nothing about human behavior or the history of civilization. So what you need is various people on the earth that know how to solve problems, not army men. Army men think in terms of defense, but there are social scientists, there are social psychologists that can give you information that can make the world a better place. We rarely have them on television. We have politicians that say, Deutschland over alles, turn to your bubble. Now, they don't say anything. They don't talk about anything. They say, which they get from the Bible, we shall always have the poor amongst us. I can't accept that. We shall always have war and rumors of war. That says it in the Bible. I can't accept that. I believe the Bible was written by ignorant men. Proof. The Bible is subject to interpretation. When you read it, she says, Jesus meant this. She says, no, he meant that. And the third person says, he meant something else. So you have the Catherine, the Lutheran, the Seventh-day Adventist, because it is subject to interpretation. Whereas when scientists speak of a bridge, they want to know what the weight is that you're going to carry, and how many cars go over every day. That determines the structure. which I like that system. And the ounce per square foot, that's their calculation. But then they put sandbags on and break the wing. And it was 27 pounds or 28 pounds. They say it's okay. I love that system. And when they finish an airplane, they pull it 30 feet off the ground and cut the string and it falls to see if the landing gear holds up. I love that system. I don't like politics. It's great 100 years ago. So there are much better ways of taking care of everyone on Earth without any technical elite or any kind of elitism. We don't need it.
Imate kakšno vprašanje?
I don't want to say
Yes, sorry.
to further explain the Venus Project. The Venus Project is not somebody's wishes and aspirations or dreams. What it is the intelligent management of the Earth's resources. We use money today to regulate resources. We don't have enough money to house and feed and clothe everybody. We don't have enough money to even house people. So the way we run society is very old, but our technology is racing forward. So the Venus Project advocates surpassing the need for this obsolete social pattern of using money to restrict resources. We talk about using a resource-based economy where you surpass the need for money, barter, taxation, or any kind of servitude. You make goods and services available to everybody by using automation as quickly as possible and phasing out boring and monotonous jobs. We use the application of science and technology to the social system. That's not scientists, because scientists have been propagandized. They're specialists. They're not broad in every area. If they were, they couldn't get scientists to make weapons and bombs to go and kill other countries. They would ask, what is it for? Why are we having that dispute with these countries? When you surpass the need for money, you won't have territorial disputes. You share the Earth's resources. The Earth's resources become the common heritage of all the world's people. This is a brief introduction to the Venus Project, so if you have any questions. And it's not just philosophy. It's been put to test in many ways. We're mainly concerned about changing the value system of people to upgrade to the technological age in which we have. And it's backed up with showing total city systems, showing clean, efficient cities, with clean transportation, clean sources of energy. You don't have to use oil, fossil fuels. And Jacque has worked on all those things all his life. He started in the 1920s in this direction. He lived through the Great Depression and saw people out of work, 15 million people out of work in New York City he lived through. And he saw that there were still things in store windows. There were still people who wanted to work. There was still arable land. And he realized at the time they didn't have the money in their pockets because the banks closed. So he realized it was the rules of the game that we play by that were obsolete. And he started in that time to look for a new social system by investigating all the systems that were up to that time, how society was run, and found them all insufficient. So he arrived at the Venus Project. And he backed it up technically, too.
I have lots of questions.
Good, start.
Can I?
Yes.
Record. If we can get to the point. Let's say that we already live in a Venus city, that there is a Venus project, at least part of the world, one city as an experiment. Now, it's a wonderful architectural design. For example, I wake up in this city. Do I own property? Do I have an apartment? So there is property rights.
She's asking if you, in the city, in the Venus Project, does she own property or property rights?
Yeah.
No one owns anything in the Venus Project. You don't even own your wife. There's no servitude. There are no waitresses. There are no people that work in coal mines. There is no ownership, but there's hundreds of sailboats for your use. You check them out. You don't have to fill out any forms or get along with Fresco.
But
The
how do
boats are
I
there for your
maintain
use.
these things? For example, if I don't own property, then it's not really in my interest to maintain those things, since they are not mine.
Why would you want to own anything? You have to maintain them, you have to house them, you have to protect them, you have to get insurance. We make goods and services available. The goods are made so they don't break down and wear out. Today it's advantageous to have things break down and wear out so they can resell them. Today all you are in this system is a consumer. They want things to break down. It's a tremendous amount of waste in this system. So we keep them at their optimal shape. We make them so that they can be changed within a few years. You make it within the household, so you insert something and you can take it out and it's interchangeable and updated.
For example, if you really don't want to own anything, what you really want is the use of things when you want it. You don't have to wait, get in the boat, use it, get in the car, use it. You want things there for your use without anybody saying there's 15 people before you, so you have to wait. The good deal about ownership is you have access immediately. Well, if you got your own car. But cars really belong to most banks. Houses belong to banks. Very few people own anything. And the banks manipulate things. They're basically ultra-corrupt, all banks, all financial institutions. The people that you admire today would be considered criminals in the future. Now, of course, you don't understand that. The King Solomon, according to the Bible, had 1,000 wives. Today, he'd be arrested as a bigamist. All the Supreme Court judges judge people without understanding their background, where they're coming from, what made them that way. If you're raised as a baby in a Nazi culture, if you never see anything else, it's hard Hitler. It's not your fault. All cultures produce all the problems that exist today. It's not the fault of an individual. If you were raised, say, by the headhunters of the Amazon, say Gaddafi, if you were raised by the headhunters of the Amazon, you would be a headhunter. And if I said to you, doesn't it bother you to have 5 shrunken heads? He says, yes, my brother has 20. It bothers me. So is he abnormal? No. He's normal to that culture. It was true in ancient Rome, they used to feed Christians to lions. Everybody would come to see Christians being fed to lions. They would take their clothes off, starve the lions so they get a better show. The whole family would come weekends to see that. When the kids would say, Daddy, can we come next week to see Christians being fed to lions? And they would say, if you behave yourself. Is the daddy crazy? Are the kids? No. That's normal to their culture. Our culture has prize fights. Like people bat the heads of other people because we're brought up in an unsane world. The things we crave to see are induced upon us by our propaganda, motion pictures, television, radio. So very few people can grow up as individuals. If they were individuals, you couldn't control them. There'd be 5,000 political parties. If there's only 2 or 3, it means you're under control. So in our society, we don't want anybody to follow me. We want you to think for yourself, come up with new ideas, submit them to the culture. So there's no final frontiers. People say, well, Fresco, you're a utopian. You want to build a perfect world. I do not condone the concept of utopia, because any city I design would be a straitjacket to the kids of the future. They'll design their own cities. That's why if you make a statue of me and put it in the city, it holds things back. We want you to move on. In other words, when people come over and say, hey, you're obsolete, it means you're making good progress. So there are no heroes, no great men, no technical elites, no kind of elitism. And people do not make decisions. They arrive at them. I want to tell you what that means. The Department of Agriculture will take samples of the soil. There they analyze the soil. And by the contents of the soil, they say it's best to grow wheat or sugarcane. But that's not an opinion, that's a finding. So in the future, no one makes decisions, they arrive at them. Just as they do in the aircraft industry or any technical industry. They take concrete, twist it, bend it, press it, and they give you a list of the reaction under different tensions, compression, torsion. I love that system. What I don't like is the system, what do you think, what do you think, what do you know, what have you found out? And we'd rather use that. That's why the world has so many problems. It's based on an old language that can't talk about anything except blah, blah, blah. I'll try to give you an example. Normal people say, have a nice weekend. Why don't they say, have a nice life? Why just a weekend? Don't you see? You're so caught up in it, you don't even think about what you say. Sometimes a person says, how are you, John? I said, I need $4,000 for an operation. Can you supply it? I said, no. Then why do you ask me how I am? I don't understand. This society is sick beyond description. All societies. I hope during the questions you pinpoint the answers. It's different than anything political. Political parties don't know how to solve problems. When I was a kid during the Depression, there were communists, socialists, atheists, abolitionists, all kinds of people on soapboxes, including Mankind United. So I was standing in front of a communist, and he says, beat it, sonny boy. I said, I want to hear what you've got to say. He says, why? I said, because I don't believe what the Republicans say about the Democrats, or what the Democrats say about the Republicans. I want to hear what a communist has to say from a communist. He says, you can stay. So after about an hour, I said, I want to ask you 1,000 questions. He said, such as what? And I said, how do you prevent corruption under communism? He said, when that time comes, we'll work on it. I said, let's work on it now. How will you house the millions of people? I don't know. So I said, what will you do when you get into power? He said, well, we'll play it by ear. I said, let's study that in advance. He says, you're a deviationist from the teachings of Marx. Absolutely. No, he was a dumbbell, I'd say, because I would help any country, any organization to learn how to use the earth more intelligently. I'm not against anybody, because I believe that a communist country is just as sincere as any other country. They're all wrong, though. The socialists want to have the working man taken care of. If the working man gets 10 bucks an hour, I give him 20 bucks an hour, the price of the car goes up. It's good for a working man, but it's not good for the public. So we're not interested in any organization that's self-perpetuating. We're interested in raising every human being to their highest potential. And if anybody doesn't like the Venus Project, it's because they project their own values in it. They think there's a bunch of scientists in gray. You will work in Area D. You, Area K. It's nothing like that. That comes from Hollywood, where they make movies of robots choking the designer, and space stations where they kill each other with laser weapons. That isn't the future. That's psychopath's idea of a future. In other words, the future can be very fantastic. It could be a wonderful place where there are no more signs. Drive carefully, slippery when wet. We put abrasive in the highway so it's not slippery when wet. And when they say, drive carefully, school children crossing, when a school child presses a button across the street, the pavement looks like this and turns up, so no car can hit a kid. That's the way we say, I love you, I care, not by God bless all of you. What the hell's that? So I'm trying to tell you that the real answers are technical. Our problems today are technical.
There's other questions?
For example, is there any rule in the Venus city? For example, now we say that there must be like rule of law. Because the rules must be posed and must be obeyed.
No, there are laws today. Whenever they can't control something in this chaotic system, they make a law. And whenever the law doesn't suit that country, they break it. There are plenty of treaties made for peace. They're all broken if it doesn't suit their needs.
Yeah,
so
would there be chaos
no.
in Venice City?
No.
Because there is no...
There are laws because of the insufficient way that society is operated. If you make goods and services available to everyone, you don't need laws, do not steal. You don't need courts to back that up, to put them in jail. Most of the people in jail are there because of the insufficiencies of society, of the scramble of wealth, property, and power. So if what the Venus Project does is look for the causes of the problems. We're not doing patchwork in this society, making another law, or buying land to preserve for natural resources. When they want that land again after you buy it, they'll take it if they want it. So there's no way of making this system just and equitable. If you design a system where goods and services are available to everyone, children are raised with a different value system, they wouldn't even begin to think of hurting someone. The smarter you make the people and the children, the better everyone's life is. As long as few nations control most of the Earth's resources, you're going to have problems if you don't make everything common heritage to all the Earth's people. So if you do that, you don't need laws not to steal, do not kill. We take out the reasons for the aberrant behavior. People think that that's natural, that that's human nature. Well, it isn't. We've been living with scarcity since the beginning of time. So you get aberrant behavior. We want to make an abundance as quickly as possible, and it eliminates a lot of the aberrant behavior with a new educational system and a new value system that's updated to that society. You want to elaborate on that?
Well, if you live near a waterfall, where there's lots of drinking water, mountains of it, nobody comes at night and steals a canteen full of water. It's only when it's scarce. There used to be a time when water was free all over. Now in the United States, it's $1 for a glass of water. So why? Because it's scarce. If you produce tires that don't wear out or last 15 years, the tire company will buy that patent and not produce it. But when tires wear out, that's their business. When somebody dents your car, somebody makes money doing it. If you need a root canal job, it's $1,200. So all human misery pays off today by someone. If you can't see too well, somebody makes $100 selling you eyeglasses. How can you have decency and ethics in such a world?
You know, today when somebody steals a watch, 3 times, they put them in jail. 3 times when you're out in the United States, they put them in jail for a long time. And then they have to house them, give them medical care for years and years and years. Isn't it cheaper to give them a watch? You know, it's so stupid. We're talking about, as I said again, is the intelligent management of Earth's resources for the benefit of people and the environment.
Is there enough resources if you look at the growing population of the world? Do we have enough technology? Do we have the knowledge right now at this moment?
Can you hear that?
Yes.
Do you have enough resources or the technology?
When the United States was in the middle of a depression, they had very little money to go around.
But they had
And then when
resources.
the war came, with the Axis powers, we gave them submarines, airplanes, aircraft carriers, everybody's got machine guns. Where does all that money come from all of a sudden? They take it, they create a national debt. But if they didn't have the resources, they couldn't build that. So obviously, we have enough resources. But nations spend most of their money, their best brains, on weapons of war. Now, Einstein and all the other people, Dr. Lawrence, that worked on Oppenheimer, that worked on the atom bomb, went to see President Truman. President Truman was a hat salesman, I don't know if you know that, a real pinhead. And Oppenheimer and Einstein suggested that they drop the atom bomb 30 miles off the coast of Japan and say, we have a terrible weapon, we'd rather not use it, please surrender. And he says, I don't want to see those guys anymore. So he dropped the bomb in Hiroshima, Nagasaki, because he was a stupid individual. That builds hatred for the future, you understand? that all the presidents of the United States, I'm sorry to use these terms, were assholes. They knew nothing. They were not well educated in ecology, the history of civilization. They know nothing. They're businessmen and lawyers. There's nothing the matter with lawyers as long as they have their hands in their own pockets.
You know, I just wanted to comment on this a little bit more. We have never given us clean transportation and no waste. We've never asked science that. Science solves problems. Politicians can't begin to solve problems. But scientists and the methods of science are abused today, and they're misused. It's not science and technology and machines and automation that you should be wary of. It's the misuse and abuse of science as it is in this system for money and profit and wealth and power. So within a resource-based economy, you would use science and technology for the benefit of everyone. You wouldn't want to make cars that wear out and break down because the whole society has to maintain that. The whole idea behind the city systems is that you use resources wisely so there's more to have an abundant and more amenities for everyone. So it's not just monuments, as Jacque said, to people's ego. It's a total system where you, I don't know if you saw the city design, where you design 1/8 of the city and you duplicate it. You make it so you can recycle it if you need to update things. You use clean sources of energy, and it's a very, we call it social architecture that Jacque arrived at. It's a very different way of thinking of architecture, so you can house, feed, clothe everyone, and you make resources go farther. You have a central area of air conditioning, and that's piped throughout the whole city. You don't have a single air conditioner on everybody's home. That's good for business today, but it's extremely wasteful. So it's a different way of thinking, of organizing resources, so there is more than enough to go around. And this could have been done in 1927 when automation was, I think it was automation in 27, and jigs and fiction, you know, and were devised. You could have gone in that direction then, so there were enough resources back then to think of this type of, to apply it to this type of system.
And we wouldn't have to go to work, right? But would we be specialized in something? Would I have to specialize?
You don't have to do anything you don't want to do, but people...
No, because if you really are honest, the earth is probably carried by no more than 100 people. The Edisons, the Teslas, Louis Pasteur, very few people make the world run. In the future, you need no more than 7,000 people to operate everything on earth. You don't have to work. You go to art centers, schools, write plays, travel. Work can be phased out easily. If you don't understand me, go to any supermarket today, you see new machines that take a card, you run it through, the cashier is gone. They're moving people out, yes.
But if I let 7,000 people operate, then I give them this power to do so. They have the intelligence in their hands. So they are the kind of elite. I don't trust them.
They have no power.
No, why?
Because they're assigned to do different things by people who are organized in the knowledge of this direction. They have no power over anything. You know, when kids are born, they're very interested in doing things. It's wiped out of them. They're told them that they can't do things. The school is boring for them. But everybody, even when they're out of money, they're out of jobs, a lot of people want to volunteer. People won't be sitting around doing nothing. There's a lot to do. But the things that will be wiped out in the future without money are predatory or parasitic jobs that do nothing, like lawyers, bankers, insurance agents, real estate agents, salespeople. That's a tremendous waste. People who manipulate money and make money by selling paper, and you know, they contribute nothing to society. But if people are healthy and well-adjusted, they want to work and they want to do things, but they'll be working on problems that are detrimental to everyone, like heart disease, tsunamis, cancers. There's plenty that we don't know, but we're really uncivilized. We're working, our best minds are working on weapons of destruction, how to go to war with different types of weapons. They're not working in constructive ways. And the reason, and if you find people who want power or wealth or manipulate people, they'd be helped. They would be sick in a society that we're talking about. Today they're honored and they're given medals for going and killing. They're rewarded. But in the society we're talking about, they'd be helped because they'd be looked at as being ill.
So if we treat them as they are ill, we already have some kind of hierarchy that tells who's ill and who's healthy, and we can operate with them. And we can operate with them and treat them as less bad.
Hierarchy is to treat people who are ill, who want wealth, property, and accumulation of goods.
Everybody has access to anything they want. So I can't say that there are people that are treated better or worse.
No, she's talking about if you
put them in the hospital, that's like
I just mentioned that people, they're not put it in the hospital or prisons. They're educated to be participatory members of society. If you abuse people and put them in hospitals and you know, you pay for that at the end. Society pays for that because people become more aggressive and they don't become participatory. That's the way they treat people today, but not in the type of system that we're talking about.
Let's put it your way. In the center of the city, there's the medical staff. They are responsible for the health of everybody in that city. You can't say it's all in your head, go home and take a pill and call me 2 days from now. They can't say that, because if the health of the whole population is slightly lower, they go back to school. Nobody is punished, nobody is put in prison. They have to go back to school to learn the latest technologies. Yes.
Can I, the way I understand this is that in a society that would function as a resource-based society, and where everybody would be allowed and encouraged and raised to realize their full potential, the relationship, our own relationship towards health and our lives would be fundamentally different than today. We live our lives, we go to jobs that we hate, and we expect doctors to give us pills to make us better, where in this system, actually, it would be your own, you take responsibility for your life, you would realize what you really want,
Yes.
which would in itself eliminate pretty much most of the disease that we live with, because disease comes mostly from the mind, throughout life we build troubles. Yes, and if that was gone, if you from an infancy were to live healthy life and you would do what you like and you'd be in touch with your own body, with your own mind, with your own heart, then there would be no need for huge hospitals. There would be reconstructive surgery in case of an accident, but not, you know, like, oh, I'm sick. You would find the cure would be within your life, not just waiting for the pill.
Well, let me say it your way. If a drug company finds out that celery juice lowers high blood pressure, you can't make any money with that.
Yeah.
But you can make $2 for every pill to lower blood pressure. I've known of no pharmaceutical company that recommended fresh, natural foods, unadulterated, sprayed with poisons. We spray all our foods with poisons. Yet about 40 years ago, they found out you can generate certain sounds that keep insects off the plant. I love that system. You don't spray poisons on. That's all we want to do. All that a resource-based economy is not to hurt or kill or injure any people at all, but help all people grow no matter what their values are.
And there has to be some kind of social...
Mississippi is not America. These systems are so poor, they're so inadequate and so primitive that it's very hard to find sanity in the world today. You know, there are many things people do. They buy refrigerators, cooking utensils, because it's efficient to sell each home an oven, a refrigerator, but that's not really what people want. millions of people making bacon and eggs every morning. You want a machine to watch the best cooks in the world make bacon, whatever it is, and then program it so that you're free to go to any dining area and eat any kind of food you want, anytime you want. It's open all the time. There are sailboats, yachts for your use. You can go out with a group of 10 people that you want to go out with on a 2-month cruise. You would come back, the boats, well, people say, well, who's going to service the boats? Who's going to do the dirty work? Titanium, you know, the metal called titanium, rust 1/1000th of an inch in salt water in 1,000 years. So all boats will be clad, thin-coated titanium to minimize service. Now all axles need lubrication, all the ball bearings. But if you use magnets facing the inside and the shaft floating in there, it'll never wear out. Do you understand? Magnetic repulsion, like maglev trains. No lubrication, no oil, no fossil fuel. There's more than enough energy today. Geothermal is the natural heat of the earth. The geothermal experts tell me that there's really enough energy in the earth alone for thousands and thousands of years. They tell us if we harness the waves, there's enough energy there for thousands of years. If we harness photovoltaics, there's enough energy there. Wind, rain, tides. There's thousands of sources of energy that are non-polluting. But if you own an oil company, you're not too interested in that. You understand? Okay.
As long as there's scarcity, you get elitism. If there are scarce resources that aren't enough to go around, then you're going to have the problems that you're afraid of. And that's what this system does today. It promotes that. If we eliminate scarcity, which is what this system is about, then there's no need for anybody to hoard or take control over anything. There'd be interdisciplinary teams of people who are knowledgeable in that area. You don't want to go to a baker to have a bridge built. You would go to those who understand how to do that. And first, nobody makes the decisions. You take a survey of the earth, where the resources are, where the needs are that people have, how many heart disease, how much cystic fibrosis. That determines where hospitals are built, where the arable land is. So that determines, and what the needs are of the people. So if there is any dictatorial, anything that arises, then this system is not what we're talking about. It won't work. And what we're looking for are the problems with this system and how to surpass that. What are the problems? What creates elitism? What creates corruption? And how you surpass that. This is what the Venus Project is about. We look at the source of the problems.
Don't we have it in our genes, like animals, like people?
No, we
always
don't.
have it
They tell you
faster,
that.
stronger,
Don't we have it on
better?
our genes? There is no such thing as human nature. There's human behavior, and that's always been changed. Otherwise, you'd still be living in caves. Women wouldn't be voting.
As people
Blacks would be
develop,
slaves.
but since animals, we always had some kind of structure, and there was always something that made someone better and someone.
We're talking about genetics now. Are some people lazy, more other people artistic, creative? What do you do with the structure of the body if people are naturally greedy? Now, I met a group of psychologists, and they said to me that your system is okay, but if it gets one thing, human nature. They said that people are naturally jealous. That's part of human nature. So I said, give me an example of natural jealousy. The psychologist said, when I reach for my cat to put it on my lap, the dog growled, because he's jealous. So I did this. I fed the dog fresh liver, then I picked up the cat. I did that about 10, 15 times. So every time I reached for the cat, the dog's tail would wag. If it was inborn jealousy, that tail would not wag. You see, I'm trying to disprove that it's human nature. This is the way it is. There is no such thing.
You know, you think it's human nature because parents today don't know how to raise kids. You have to go to school for years and years to work on a jet engine. But kids have much more connections in their head than a jet engine, and nobody goes to school or learns anything about raising kids. You know, for an example, when you have 2 kids and you favor one and say, why can't you be like your little sister? She picks up all her things and she does all her homework. And when that little sister falls down the stairs, there's a grin on that little boy's face. So you create jealousy, anger, you know, and all that aberrant behavior, and they don't even know it. So people who raise kids would understand what are the mechanisms that make people behave the way they do. And we know that today, but we don't use that today. If we did, we'd be looking at what are the factors in society that make people behave in an aberrant way.
I want to say this about human behavior. My little boy, when he was 4 years old, came to me and he said, Daddy, the wheel came off my toy car. So I said, so it did, and I threw it in the garbage. I went back to my newspaper, but I'm looking at him line, that lower lip. And then he starts crying. He said, you throw it away. I said, I'll get you baby toys where the wheels don't come off. He said, well, maybe I can fix it. So I reached for it and gave it to him, and he's working on it. Once he gets it together, I said, how did you do that? He says, I'm not that little. And I put him on my lap and tell him how wonderful that is. But if you say, here, let Daddy fix it for you, let Mommy fix that, you produce a blob of a nothing up here. So what I do is create the conditions to make them what you call creative and smart. I never taught my kids how to read. So I used to read to them at night in bed. And when they got to the most interesting part of the book, I closed it. The kids said, well, tell me what happened then. I said, look, if you learn to read, you can go right on and find out what it is. Don't teach them to read. Give them a need to want to read. Do you understand? Don't teach them mathematics. 10 and 10 is 20. 20 what? If a man comes up to me and says, I have 6 kids. I say, what are they for? Well, just having 6 kids doesn't mean anything. People today are all aberrated due to society. Now, it's easy to get mad at me and put me in jail. It's easier to do that than change society. And one senator said, Jacque, if you influence too many people too fast, the government might pick you up. I said, how do they do that? All we do is put drugs in your car, and your friends will say, you know, there was something strange about John anyway. So you can't fight that. I can't fight the media. It's big and powerful. I can only appeal to what you call reason. I can only appeal to that. But I don't even believe in reason if you don't have the background. For example, I brought a Japanese kid home one day. And my mother says, I don't want that kind around. So somebody said to me before then, do you love your mother? I said, in what area? She was a racist and a bigot. I did not love her in that area. Nor is there such a thing as love, which scares the hell out of people. Let me tell you what there is. I don't think anybody here likes everything you've ever done in life. Some things you don't like, some things you're ashamed of. So sometimes you like yourself, sometimes you don't, sometimes you hate yourself, sometimes you love yourself. So love is a fluctuating thing. If you fall in love and marry some guy, you will love some things about him, some things don't love, and how do I ever get into this situation? Love is a fluctuation, not fixed. As long as you teach people about that, you don't love everything about yourself. Consider it. If you live with a replica of yourself, how long would you be together? You wouldn't last very long. So sometimes you like yourself, sometimes you don't. Let's be honest about all these things. Now people say they believe in honesty. And they can say, Mommy, where do babies come from? The stork brings them. And Santa Claus brings the kids all the time. You lie to these kids and then you expect them to grow up as decent human beings? You talk to kids, they want to know. You give kids artificial stories, Jack and the Beanstalk, Cinderella. Kids can learn geology, chemistry, structural engineering, bullshit, constantly. What do you expect of kids? So kids do not grow up sanely. And soldiers, I want to say, when I try to reach soldiers, I say, you're brought up to be killing machines. I said, well, don't you like your country? I said, I love my country. I love all countries. But why don't we conscript when war comes, conscript all the war industries, so no one makes a buck out of it. If I conscript your life and put it up for this country, I should conscript all the war industries, so no one makes a buck out of war. Then it's free.
I think,
It never would happen. If you did that, you wouldn't have war.
I think we're being told the hour's up. If you want to know more of the Venus Project, please look at thevenusproject.com.
I'm not your enemy. Thank you.
I would like to thank you both for visiting Slovenia. We are
Thanks for the
overwhelmed.
privilege.
And I would like to announce everybody because it is new arrangement tomorrow at 11 a.m. We are having another press conference at Sanje, Založba Sanje, near the television where what's working. So please be so kind and spread the word. So in the middle of the center of Ljubljana, we can meet again tomorrow at 11, and then we'll go to originally planned chapter meeting and another media meeting in Medvoda. So this is new now, just decided, and I would just like to say to journalists today here, please help us now to spread the word, because Fresco is now in Ljubljana and is having a 3-hour and Roxanne a 3-hour time to talk about prison. Thank you both and all of you.
Thank you.